Top of the morning to you, Jake. Top of the morning to you.
What are you trying to do to me this morning, Adam?
Guys, it's not usual that me and Jake put these shows together pre-recorded. They're always live. But we found that in certain cases, our guests aren't able to use the platform that we have. So we've done a workaround, and we're doing an audio recording via phone call. And I just wanted to say quick, Jake, I was just watching that intro there with the stream and the water and all that. Did you see that? Jake, it's been like that there was some fall colors in there. And I remember going out and shooting that video last year. It's like coming up on a year since we've done Mountain Stream, since we started it.
How many we got?
We've already got 12. Well, this is the 12th.
Oh, that's pretty near one a month.
That's a lot. That's pretty good for the BLB. Pretty good for the BLB. But yeah, usually these shows are live. But hey, we're live in the chat right now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Holding it down.
I wonder what we're saying. And the future us. I wonder what the future us is saying right now.
We're probably saying hi to Big Rob or Andy Gone or some people in the chat, something like that. We're probably doing that. Ems Lionheart.
I was on what's it called? Spaced Out Radio. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah. Spaced Out Radio.
I was in a chat there last week, and Dave, is it Dave? The guest, the host.
Dave.
Dave Scott, I think is his name. He agreed to come on our show, Mountain Stream. So he'll be coming on this show with us at some point. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, there's my sister.
We have
Jake, I'm sorry. I got to take this.
Okay, well, let me just tell the folks that
hey, I'm right in the middle of Mountain Stream with Jake right now.
We have a lot of interesting guests coming up.
I got to go. I'm telling you. Okay, bye.
It fell off the back of my Ford.
Jake, I'm sorry about that. That was my sister. She was just calling me to tell me that those were the best fried green tomatoes she's ever had because I gave her some of the heirlooms from the Thrain's organic vegetable garden.
She knows.
I had to take it. She's not around very often. She's usually out in Arizona. Where were we, Jake? I'm so sorry. What do you got? A smudge going on?
A little Palo Santo. No, we had you were just telling the folks at home about the plethora of great guests we have coming on the Mountain Stream. We've got a bunch of, like we said before, some heavy hitters, some white whales.
Yeah, we do.
Some great people, great support. It's just we're blessed with our community here.
Yeah, we have some of the guests coming up. In the next couple of weeks are some people we've been wanting to have on since we came up with the idea for Mountain Stream, and timing is so important for everything. And we feel like right now, not only for them, for our guests, but for us and for what's going on in the community, that right now is a pretty good time to nail it, so to speak, get them on the show. But Jake, let's talk more about tonight's show. I don't want to beat around the bush too much. I was watching the Bigfoot Odyssey just recently, and they had a guest on from on the trail to Bigfoot is what it was, and down in Florida, and that's a hotbed of activity down there. That's where you get people like Tim Fasano. Rest in peace. He did a lot of research down there. And Mark Zaski down in Florida. And we all know that, that's where Carrie's expedition was originally going to take place down there in Florida. So we wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Mark Barton came on and had some really, really kind of special things to say, intriguing, one of a kind type of encounter story here for all of us to listen to on Bigfoot Odyssey's channel. And me and Jake were thinking, let's learn more. Let's learn more about, before we go jumping into anything, let's learn more if we can, in fact, learn more. So we reached out to this guy, What was his name? Dave Shealy, Jake? Is that it?
Dan, Mr. Dan Shealy.
Dan?
Dan? Did I spell his name wrong?
I think it's Dave. Jake, should we just get him on? Should we just get him on?
Yeah, let's just sorry. Yeah, okay. Let's get him on here.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let us introduce to you the one, the only, Dave Shealy. Dave, thanks for coming on.
Mr. Shealy, first of all, thank you so much for coming on with the Blue Line Bigfoot. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's awesome. We've been watching some of your stuff online, and I've known that you've been down and around that area doing research for quite some time. I'm not sure if you know much about where me and Jake are. We're up in the Adirondack Park up here in upstate New York. 6.2 million acres of wilderness. We've been doing our Bigfoot research for quite some time, not nearly as long as what you've been doing down there, but we figured we'd give you a call and see what you're all about and see if we could get to know each other a little better.
Yeah, well, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, if I understand correctly, first of all, let's get a little better acquainted. I have my buddy Jake Hitchcock. He's the other half of BLB. I know me and you have been talking a little bit, but we have Jake Hitchcock. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves here?
Hey now there, I'm Adam's partner in crime up here in ADK. I'm a little longer in the tooth than he is. I went to school with his older brother, but we were raised up here in the woods, and we know our way around a campfire. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, and it's cold up there. I bet y'all have a lot of campfires. Yeah, I'm doing good. I live down here in the swamp. My family has lived here since 1890 in the Everglades, and so this is where I grew up at. And my dad and mom bought this property here where I'm at in 1960, and it's inside the national park. So I live inside the national park, which is unusual. And I just grew up airboating and hunting and pretty much living the free life here in the Everglades. And so that's me. That's what I do.
It must be really cool down there. Now, is it Big Cypress National where you're at?
Yeah, I'm on the northern border of Everglades National Park. I think it's fairly big. It's like 1 million acres, but it connects to the national park. Big Cypress Preserve is 1 million acres. The national park, I think, is 3 million acres. And then there's a lot of adjoining conservation areas and wetland areas that extend to the north up to Lake Okeechobee. And it's interesting that, the actual acreage that you mentioned where you're at up there, because the Everglades is, if I'm wrong, correct me, but this is the national park saying this, that the Everglades is the largest interconnected wilderness areas in the United States east of the Mississippi. And a lot of people don't think that because Florida looks so small on a map, and the Everglades is just the tip of it. But supposedly that's an accurate fact. Now, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, I think you're correct on that. I don't think we're not a national preserve. We're just we're a park. And it's big, but we have interstates running through the park. There's a lot of people that live here. A lot of times people say this isn't a park. This is our home. This is where we work. This is where we live. And it's true, but it is protected in ways.
That's a beautiful thing to have those freedoms to be able to live and work. Like we should be able to in wild areas. We're humans. We're part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're is it Okeechobee? Is that how you say that?
Yeah. It's a little town called Okeechobee, and we have two major highways that run through the Everglades. There's US 41 that crosses the state east to west at the bottom, and then about 20 miles to the north is a major highway, I-75, Interstate 75, also passes through the Everglades, and they have a series of wildlife underpasses, and it's fenced in with 12-foot fencing the entire 80 miles, both sides of the road, 80 or 120, whatever it is.
Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
so it allows wildlife to flow freely, and kind of it's called corridors. They build these corridors where you can they're built in areas that animals travel in. It's the Florida Corridor program. It stretches all over the state. It's huge.
Yeah,
Wow. Interesting choice of words, don't you think, Adam?
I do. It's interesting. Me and Jake have we kind of coined the phrase the Adirondack Sasquatch corridors up here through the park. We have corridor A through D, which we kind of believe are kind of migratory paths that these creatures kind of travel through, and we kind of mapped it out ourselves. I don't know if anybody else has done anything like that here in the park, but they run east to west, and we have our own. Me and Jake created our own corridor system here in the Adirondack Park.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, natural corridors, hunters have used them, for eons. Florida there was two ice ages, and in one of the ice ages, whether it was the first one or the second one, I don't know, but it's when the mammoth hunters were pushed down here in Florida due to the ice age, and this is where the woolly mammoth was and the saber cats and all that. And but Florida goes up and down over the eons. Florida's been covered with water up and down, but throughout time, corridors have been used, high ridges, to either get across water or for food sources and stuff like that. So corridors are something that are actually real, and y'all know that. A lot of people don't. It's an area where things travel.
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
Yeah, it's like setting up a deer stand on a deer trail, but in a lot bigger spectrum.
Gotcha. Now, is it the Seminole Indians that were most prevalent down in that area?
Yeah. I'm in my cabin right now, and just like a mile from me is kind of where the Seminole Wars came to a head. The Seminoles are the only Indians in the United States that never signed a peace treaty with the government. They're called the tribe that never surrendered. And that all happened right here where I do my research. And the descendants of those Indians, they're friends of mine as well.
Very cool. Very cool. I have Seneca blood in me and my family. We're from Western New York, and that's where most of my family's from, and I definitely have some Seneca in me. I heard that through watching some of the things I've seen online where you're from, Ochapi there is a Seminole term called Big Field of the Unknown. Am I correct there?
That's correct. Big field with a big opening at the end of it. It could be a big field of anything, but there's no word there, so nobody knows. It's just big field of whatever. Yeah,
gotcha.
Unknown.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So cool talking with you. We've been doing research mainly, like I said, in the Adirondack Park, and we have our own theories on what goes on in this area. But it's good to talk to somebody from down in Florida. We hear oftentimes about what goes on down in Florida with the skunk ape, and everybody says, "Oh, the skunk ape," and this and that. And so that's why we're reaching out to you. There was a recent show on a family kind of show, Family Channel. One of our good friends does a show. It's called Bigfoot Odyssey. And they just recently had a guest on from a YouTube channel called On the Trail of Bigfoot. They're down in Florida. I don't know if you're familiar, but just recently researching that, me and Jake thought, let's get a hold of somebody that's down there that might be able to talk to us and enlighten us a little bit more about the skunk ape down there. So that's one of the main reasons why we're getting a hold of you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know for sure. Honestly, I think that skunk ape researchers are down here in Florida are the real, the ones that are in it for real. That they live it. There's only a few of us, and unfortunately, I heard word that a friend of mine had passed away. He lived up in Tampa. He's a cab driver.
Tim Fasano.
Tim Fasano.
Yeah. He was
in peace.
He was a friend of ours too.
Okay, yeah, he and I mean, he was kind of like a big guy, like a bully guy, and he was kind of funny to watch. And I watched him for years on his videos, and I really got to liking him. I would stop whatever I was doing when his stuff would come up, and whoever I was with, I'd get them to gather around, and we'd watch Tim. I love watching Tim. I'm gonna miss him.
We miss him already. You know, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of Tim's family is from Western New York, same as mine. And so when me and him would talk, we'd talk about getting together and drinking some Genesee beer, because the Genesee Beer Company's from Rochester, New York, where a lot of his family's from, where a lot of my family's from. And we did have him on the docket to get to come on our show, and we wanted to get to know the guy better. And then, you know, rest in peace. You know, he passed away, and it was just a kind of sudden thing. He got sick, and it sucks, because what a good guy.
Yes, I passed his name along to some of the networks. I'm involved in a lot of that kind of stuff, and recommended him several times, recently, and not knowing that this had happened. But I don't think he knows what a fan he had in me. I really like watching him. He was very interesting and really put in the time.
He was, one of his credits I think went really underappreciated was his photography and just the way he captured wildlife. He was really good at it. He was really good with getting shots of wildlife. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's just time in the field, and that's why I brought him up. There's very, very few people that put in that kind of time, and very few. You can count them on one hand here in Florida.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's move along.
Let's get. I mean, I'm going to be hitting you with a bunch of just off, questions.
Okay.
Is it true that your father coined the phrase skunk ape?
Well, there's a Wikipedia, I think, is like an internet website. There's something you go to, you ask a spoiler. They wanted to give my father the credit for it because they had looked into it and could find nothing further back. And they actually called me before they put the information into Wikipedia and asked me that question. Now, I don't know how it stands now, but it could be, but I don't know that for a fact. But I know the skunk ape was a big topic in my house growing up, and the neighbors would come over, and they knew what it was. I don't know if my dad made it up or not, quite honestly.
Well, that's interesting. Very interesting. So when you were a little kid, let's talk about what kind of got you into this. I know that you were out in the field with your brother, and you had an encounter when you were like 10 years old or something. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Right
near where I'm at now. I'm on the same property now, but out in the back. We had a deal. We lived off the land, so if we hunted, like if we killed a deer, that was a big deal because that was food. And so we had a thing with my mom that if we went hunting, if we shot a deer, there wouldn't be time to clean it and all and still go to school that day. So we got up early and went out, try to get a deer. But my brother said, hey, there's something out there. It was in front of us in the grass. He said, it looks like the skunk ape, like we've been hearing about. He was older than me. I was 10, so he was 13 years old. And I couldn't see because the grass was kind of high, but he got me around the waist and picked me up where I could see over the grass. And about 100 yards away was a skunk ape, exactly what our parents had been talking about seeing around. And so we came in and told my dad what we had seen. It was big news in town. A lot of the guys in town came down and went out looking for it. And that's why I recommended my field guide to people coming to the Everglades. If you happen to run into a skunk ape or see one, really, it's not a good idea to tell anybody for a few days because these animals are in areas feeding and it's their life cycle. And when people immediately go in there like that in groups, they run them out. And I think there's be a lot more people see them if they wouldn't push them that way.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that these creatures down there are on maybe an endangered list, or do you think they're doing fine where they're at?
You know, that's a really good question, because I'll tell you just right up front, I don't know the answer, but all I can say is that we talked briefly about the Indians that were here earlier, you know, when we were talking earlier, and they tell me stories. I talk to all the Indians. The Seminole Indian tribe is a very wealthy tribe. They are. I mean, when I was growing up, though, they had nothing. They lived in the forest. They had no refrigeration or anything like that. I mean, these are truly wild Indians who they've done well for themselves. They're not stupid. Nobody said they were, but they're not. They're very smart people. But many Indians have come to me and told me stories, and some Indians, leaders of the tribe, medicine people, that what they do is they don't write down their history. It's called a verbal history. So these medicine men, they have 200 years of verbal history in their head. That's how they do it. And I was just really blessed, maybe, it's been about 30 years ago, by a medicine woman. Kind of changed my life, kind of shaped my business. Her kids they're old as me. They come here and visit me every day. They look over me. But back to the thing is, the stories that I've heard from these people that go back 200 years, word of mouth, is that in that time frame, there's always been skunk apes here, but there's never been a great number. The biggest count of skunk apes that ever went on at one time was when the Seminole Wars were going on down here, that the Seminoles had located a group of these skunk apes living on an island. Now, I don't know how many were there, but supposedly a troop, you would say, if it was apes, maybe a troop. Mm-hmm. But so one of the Indians got together and said, here's these big animals, people, whatever. They didn't know what they were. They called them hairy man. And they wanted, and by that time, slavery was in America, because the Seminole Wars were real late. So slavery, there were cotton fields and tobacco fields, and so there were slaves that were running, and they were running south into the Everglades to get away. And there were also slaves here in the Everglades, and they would run into the Indians. So it wasn't uncommon for the Seminoles in the heat of the battle to take on people that would fight with them. So there was a lot of slaves that fought with the Seminoles, but in this particular incident that I'm talking about, the Indians talked, and they decided to send one Indian to this island where these skunk apes were to see if he could communicate with them and get them to come and fight. I mean, they were like humans, but they were huge and covered with hair. So the Indian leaves the village, and he goes to this area, and he finds them. Like I said, I don't know how many there were, but there was, I would say, by the way the story's told, more than 4. And they didn't harm him. When he came back to the village and they said, what happened? Are they going to help us? He said that he tried his very best to communicate every way he could to get them to understand him, but that there was just no communication whatsoever, to the point where they just turned and walked away from him. So if you're asking me why there's not many skunk apes, or do I think skunk apes are endangered, I don't know. I can tell you this, that the National Park Service does not discredit what I have found. In fact, just recently, they have partnered with an orangutan facility in Indonesia, and they're bringing researchers, they have been for the past 24 months, here to the Everglades to look for what they believe is a troop of orangutans that is living in the forest here in the southern Everglades. Mm-hmm. So they are doing it as it is a troop of orangutans that I am seeing and I have been following. But that's not what's on my video. What's on my video is not an orangutan. You will see my video on the Travel Channel on the 16th of this month coming up. you'll
Great.
see it. It's on Paranormal, caught on video. And the video itself is amazing. It will probably reach the height of the Patterson-Gimlin film given time, because it's never been discredited, and nor will it ever will be. One of the things that I don't know how much, because everything's done right now with the coronavirus in Hollywood, and I work with a lot of shows, discovery shows. Like I have the star of Guardians of the Glades, Dusty Crumbs. They're getting ready to start filming their new season. He's right here in my front yard. He's been in my front yard I let him stay here for about 5 months while he preps himself for the new series. So I meet a lot of people too here. Mm-hmm. Now, back to where where were we going to?
Well, you brought up your film, okay? And I had some questions about that film, not the authenticity of it, just what I watch in that.
Oh, that's fine, and I'm going to answer every one of them. But we were talking about how many skunk apes were here, so let's bring that to the end, because I can end that. I have been collecting tracks in the preserve now for over 40 years. And I have an extensive collection of tracks, and based on the size of the tracks, the areas where they were collected, and stuff like that makes common sense, my estimate right now in the Everglades area is between 7 and 9 skunk apes live here. Not many.
Wow.
I can't answer that. People do see other skunk apes throughout the state, and they may be mating. I don't know.
Huh, very interesting. So not many
okay, so
at all.
Now we'll move along. Is that enough of an answer?
You know, Dave, sometimes there are no answers, but that's a great answer. That's an amazing answer. I mean, that's
all right.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay.
So,
all right. So you want to know about the video?
Well, I was just what I saw on the video. You hear this a lot with, you know, and we'll get to your point about, are these related to what you call Bigfoot in the Pacific Northwest, or what me and Jake have here? But you get these accounts of these creatures, whatever they are. People say they look like a cross-country skier gliding along, and like there's not this up and down motion. There's like this gliding motion, and your video speaks true 100% to that. It looks like the thing is. I run a cross-country ski center in the wintertime. That's what I do.
Let me tell you a little bit about that. That grass that it's in is 3.5 to 4 feet tall. Keep that in mind. It is in water. The water is almost 2 foot deep there, and it's a mucky bubble. When I first turned in the direction, when I seen it walking down the fronds, I actually turned in that direction because I heard a deer break out in a full run. And a deer ran down those palmettos and across that prairie right where that skunk ape comes in behind it. As the deer was running off to the side, I kind of looked back because I heard more noise, and that's when I saw the skunk ape come out. He was actually chasing a deer. And from that one hammock all the way down, I filmed it, is about 1/4 mile. And then it takes a hard left and comes across the marsh. And that's where the water comes in. That's where the water, when it's in that grass, as it's leaving that dry hammock and getting out into that grass, that water's getting deeper and deeper. And it's kind of losing its balance, it looks like. And then all of a sudden, man, it's just all full out, running as fast as a football player on a hard football field. Yeah. Okay. Running as fast as a football player in 4 foot of grass and 2 foot of water. There's no way that can be done.
Ridiculous.
It can't be done.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's super cool.
There was no surfboard and rope and airboat pulling him. All right. No, it was on his own.
Yeah.
Man.
Very intriguing. I can't wait till your video gets out there on the 16th. That's super cool. Talking about, in one of the videos recently that I've come across, this researcher was saying that the skunk ape doesn't smell like skunk, but the reason why you get the skunk smell is because that's when it's ripping the veil from one existence plane into the next, and it leaves behind a sulfurous odor. I want your take on that. Why do you think these things? What do you think the smell is?
He say he's ripping his way through like a time warp, and he pops out smelling.
Yeah.
Well, more or less that when he rips through the fabric of the dimensions, you call it, there's a residual odor that is prevalent when he comes through.
You're kind of almost talking like quantum physics and stuff like that. You're almost talking like paranormal, like the spirit world, like that. I can answer that question for you about that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, here's the thing: is the Indians say that one of the truest, most traditional Indian men that he's passed away now, and we could get into a lot of things, and I'm not going to get too deep into the Indians, but believe me, there's a lot of culture here in the Everglades, a lot more culture going on here human-wise than people even understand in this country, and it's because they live a very interesting life, and it's really, their customs probably are not socially acceptable to many Americans, so therefore they're kept very secret. Now, back to that, we were talking about the time warp thing. Okay. Right. He said to me, David, the skunk ape is a spirit, and not everyone is going to see it. That the skunk ape is a spirit that lives down inside the earth, and that only certain people are going to see it, and if it doesn't want to be seen, it won't be seen. Okay, so that's what he says to me. It sounds like Indian stuff. And so I'm thinking, okay, so, there's going to be people that say, oh, yeah, it's a spirit. But here's the truth of the matter. There's always truth in what these things. The truth of it is that I've spent over 40 years here in the Everglades tracking skunk apes. It doesn't mean I'm always hot on the trail and there's fresh tracks in the mud. Most of the time there's not. But over the years, tracks that I have found lead in and out of alligator caves, which during the dry season are like these. There's no real caves in the Everglades. Everything's full of water. But during the dry season, when the water falls, there's these caves in the bank that alligators go into, and they're big caverns. And I have found skunk ape tracks coming and going from those things. And one of the things is in an alligator cave, that's got everything in it. That's got fish in it, turtles in it, frogs in it. It's got all kinds of animal feces in it. And it's incredible how much life is in them. I mean, and it's incredible it can live because there's tons of fish in that last little drop of water. And there's the water dries. The alligators, people don't know this. They cocoon up. When it gets that dry, they'll roll in the mud real slow and let it dry, and it look like logs. And the logs are down in the mud, and the only thing you'll see are two little pencil holes in the mud, and that's where its nostrils are, and that's how it breathes. And then when the rain comes, it softens up the mud. But that last month of a real severe drought, when they know if they don't do something, it's going to be the end, they'll cocoon up. And generally the rains come. That's what they evolved. So that's the old dinosaurs. They know these things. They know how to live, these gators. So there's all this life in this ground, and there's also sulfur here in the Everglades. So any animal that would go into one of those caves and spend any amount of time, when it came out, it would be stinking to high heaven. So I contribute in my Skunk Ape Researcher's Field Guide. I contribute the odor to gases and sulfur and whatnot down in the ground. So back to your question, this thing breaks through this time warp, and you smell all this smell. So there you go. I don't know. We all got to believe what we got to believe individually. I believe I'm hunting an animal. I'm not saying I don't believe in God and I don't believe in spirits, but I look at this more as I'm hunting a real animal as I am trying to track something in the spirit world.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions me and Jake have been asking ourselves for years about we don't really have a name for it, but it seems to be that like Bigfoot encounters, and then you'll see lights, and you'll see UFO encounters in the same kind of area.
UFOs.
And it's a question that we ask ourselves: why is this stuff all happening in the same kind of proximity, more than just 10 miles away? You have all of it happening in this kind of one spot, but not necessarily 10 or 15 miles or the next couple towns over. And I don't know if you had any points about that.
Oh no, well, I mean that you're just talking the truth now. I mean that. When I first started, going public with my stuff, I heard it all. I spent 3 days in the wood with Stephen Colbert, Skunk Ape hunting. So I've heard all of the jokes and stuff like that. And what were you saying again? Let me answer this just perfectly correctly, because you were saying that it's always combined. So here's the thing. I remember I got this phone call from a newsman, or maybe I was doing a radio interview, and one of them, the newscaster or the show host, I heard him in the background making snide remarks, and he says something like, yeah, now they're seeing skunk apes. It won't be long before we start getting UFO reports, So you're exactly right.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. You're not hallucinating. It's real. That's the way it is.
What do you think the connection is? Because me and Jake are going, we're not going just by what other people say. We're going by our own personal encounters, David. Our own personal encounters in places that we have right here where we do our research. There's UFO activity, there's Bigfoot activity, and there's other activity.
I just posted on my Facebook page, on my story, I posted a photograph of a skunk ape standing in the forest with a UFO beaming it up. And many cartoon illustrators have done that. But it's been an issue for me. I'm answering your question, but I'm just trying to answer it thoroughly. Because I have a lot. Actually, after I do this show with y'all, I'm doing a paranormal podcast with a lady. But I have always tried to separate the two. I'm not a big ghost person. I spend too much time in the forest alone. And if you guys only knew, I spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours every year by myself, deep in the swamp. And the last thing I want to believe in is ghost. I don't want to see a damn ghost. I'm done. I'm not saying I don't believe.
Right.
So I asked God a long time ago, if there's a ghost out there in the woods, please don't let me see it. And I live by that. So then I get the paranormal researchers that come in, because, but I said, I've never seen a UFO. I want to believe. I look out in the Everglades into the sky at night and I see 1 billion stars, it seems like 100 billion stars. There's got to be life out there. There's just got to be. I just think I would be ignorant if I didn't accept that fact. So I believe in the possibility of UFOs from the bottom of my heart. I stake my life on it. But I'm not a UFO person. I hunt, I track skunk apes.
When we were talking just recently, I was mentioning that through our experience here, there's an area where me and Jake do some of our research. It's known to have Bigfoot activity there. We've seen UFOs there. We've had UFOs and Bigfoot, what we think is Bigfoot, caught on trail cams. But in the same area, many, many years ago when I was out in the woods, I came across little teeny footprints.
Oh, don't say it.
I'm not kidding you whatsoever. And a lot of people that are going to be watching the show when it comes out, they'll know because they've heard me talk about it. The ones that I saw, though, David, they were boot prints. They were flat-soled boot prints with a little heel on them. They were like these little teeny things were wearing shoes. And they were in the middle of nowhere, and they were about maybe 3 inches long. And I followed them along a creek bed for a while. Me and my friend did. He was the one who discovered them. And then they kind of disappeared, and then they reappeared on a sandbank right in the middle of the creek where it divided. And then we saw a couple more down the creek a little bit, and that was it. But that was in the same exact spot where we have all of this other kind of like, I don't know what you call it, paranormal, weird. I'm not saying anything about ghosts, but definite Bigfoot, definite UFO, and now the little people thing. And I've heard you talk about the little people. And
well, you have. When?
What do you think? I heard you talk about the little people online. I saw it on some YouTube thing.
Oh, really?
The little people. I don't ever recall being recorded talking about the little people, but the little people, that's really interesting because when I first started my research and was listening to the to the local stories, mainly Indians, they talked about the little people. That's all they wanted to talk about. That's really all they wanted, the little people. And when I was young, there was logging going on in the forest. This hasn't went on for 50 years now, but so there were logging trails, and I would go on the logging trails after the loggers had logged and pulled the logs. I would go in there and look, and I would find little footprints, little people tracks, about 3 or 4 inches long, like a little kid walking around, but they were barefoot. And then the Indians started telling me about the little people, and it was about 2 years ago. I rent canoes and kayaks on the river nearby, and I rent to people from around the world. I run Skunk Ape research, but like I'm in the middle of a national park. I carry national park licenses. I have guides that take people out into the forest. We're all insured. They're all, top-notch individuals. Back to the little people. So I mean, I get doctors and lawyers and people from Europe. I get stuck up people. They ought to, but you're dealing with the public. So I have these 2 doctors come in and they rent a canoe and they go for a ride in the canoe, and then we go to pick them up, and they said, "Can they talk to Dave?" And they came to me, and they had no idea. They said, "We just wanted to let you know on our canoe trip, we just saw 2 of those skunk apes down there that you were talking about. They were standing on the side of the river. We went to get a picture, and they walked off into the bushes." And I said, "Well, that's interesting." But then I said to them, "How big were they?" And they said, "Well, they were, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 foot tall." And this is the area where the Indians keep talking about these little people. And this is where I found those tracks a long time ago. And I haven't seen the little tracks in, I don't know, since the logging stopped rigging, maybe been 45 years ago was the last small tracks I found here in the Everglades. It's not something that I really pursue. But I go out with the Indians a lot. Sometimes there's these big growths on the trees. I don't know. It looks like a nest on them. I never stopped to examine one. You don't see them very often, but the Indians want to say that's where the little people live. They live inside of that, as we're driving by on the swamp buggy. But I never stop, and that'd just be disrespectful. But I don't know if it's true or not.
It's interesting, nonetheless.
Yeah, interesting. That's for sure.
Do you a lot of places, especially where me and Jake are up here, we see a lot of tree structures. You're probably familiar with people thinking that these like crude teepees and X's and weird kind of placed logs and branches and stuff, uprooted stuff is just kind of like out in the woods. Probably isn't from a windstorm. Do you have anything like that down there where you have like any kind of like skunk ape making their mark with some kind of like, putting palm fronds up in some weird way or something like that?
Well, I'm sure before we finish out that we'll get into the characteristics of a skunk ape versus a Bigfoot versus what does a skunk ape look in. We're going to get into that. So I will say that the skunk, there's always water here in the Everglades. Skunk apes will build a nest like an orangutan up in a tree above the water, either to get away from the bugs or whatever. But maybe anywhere from 10 to 20 feet up in the trees. And it's not that high. You find these structures that look kind of like like a giant squirrel's nest. I mean, they're not eagle's nest. I know what an eagle's nest is, but they're pretty hardy structures. And then, but I see all these pictures on the YouTube and all these trees, but I don't see anything like that other than the nest stuff I see up. But something unusual is a friend of mine, he passed away just recently, not recently, it's been a couple years, but he brought me some pictures of this weird constructed palm frond thing. It was like a dome, and it was like a igloo, but it was made out of palm fronds. It was pretty thin, and it had an opening in it, like a hole in it, with something to go in and out. And I thought, well, that's somebody made that or something, and I didn't give it a whole lot of credence, although it was something very unusual. So this has been, I guess it was before he died, he showed me that. It had been about maybe 10 years ago. And here just about 2 months ago, I'm contacted by a gentleman in an area to the north of me where there's been a lot of sightings. I mean, I'm talking about considerable distance, a few hundred miles away. And he sends me photographs, and it's the same hut that I had seen this other guy sent me 10 years earlier. Exactly the same type of structure. And I've been around Indians who build the palmetto frond things all my life. And of course, this wasn't nowhere near as elaborate. But I mean, I'm not a dummy. But it just looked like maybe animals have made it, because it was kind of like piled. But so I don't know. If they make structures, if they do, that's the closest thing that I've seen. I've never seen like sticks pointing the way or anything like that.
Well, have you ever seen anything that you think humans may have built, like I don't know, a couple of tree huggers running around in the woods making little sticks? Is there anything that's not unnatural but human?
Well,
like a teepee or something that's obvious, like a fort, or someone builds a little fort.
All the time. I mean, all
Really?
the time, yeah. I mean, there's nobody staying in them because people have been pretty much evicted from the entire Everglades for the last 40 years. I mean, there's a few legal hunting cabins, but not many. But, yeah, so there's structures around. There's old structures, and most of them are falling down. When I was kids, it was old Indian villages. You'd be in the forest and walk around, and you'd come across an old Indian village. They have burial grounds. I don't want to talk too much about that, but I mean, I see everything here.
All right.
What about the footprints? You said one of the great footprints that I've seen that you cast, 4 really long toes. That's completely. It's similar that it's really big in Bigfoot, but it's a lot different.
Yeah, I know, and it sucks. And it sucked ever since I started doing my research because I had a really bad backlash out of California. Those people out there did not like my research. They didn't like the tracks I was finding, and they were very, very mean to me. And I couldn't believe it. Thank God it's not as bad as it used to be because people just didn't want to accept that. But those are the tracks that I find here. And I can't do anything about it. I wish they were 5-toed flat Bigfoot tracks. People would like me more, but they don't.
Well, we like you just the same. I think it's very intriguing. And this brings me to the next point, talking about what you know, the difference between what Skunk Ape is versus the knowledge you have about what we call Bigfoot.
Okay. Well, if you were to come down here, and when we were out and a Bigfoot walked across the trail, a Skunk Ape, you'd say, hey, there's Bigfoot. I'd say, yeah, be a Skunk Ape. But it's exactly the same animal. I believe that people are seeing, but our deer are smaller here. We have a very abundant food source year-round for an animal that's savvy to the plants and the seasons. And so they're smaller than a Bigfoot. A Skunk Ape that doesn't weigh 800 pounds, they may be lucky if they weighed half that much. But deer down here don't weigh over 100 pounds. So what do you, the mammals are just smaller here.
Yeah, they're just different.
They're different. And a lot of the sightings, well, I'm going to say a majority of the sightings, no, not the majority, a lot of the sightings are skunk apes in trees. People see them climbing up in the trees and picking berries, and and so there's another difference that people see them in the trees and the tracks. So there's two differences there: the tracks and the fact that they spend a little more time in the trees. Actually, three differences, and it's a smaller animal, but that's what I'm seeing.
We appreciate that. Now, gifting. People talk about putting food out for these things to try to attract them, putting things out for them to try to get their attention and stuff. And what's your whole take on that whole type of thing?
Well, I'm guilty of in the earlier years of doing that. And I say guilty because looking back, it probably wasn't the best idea, and I'll tell you why. But nevertheless, I guess if somebody is obsessed or curious, so curious that they can't resist the temptation of setting something out, trying to lure an animal in, I mean, they can do that. It's a free country. But what I found is I was heavy baiting. I'm talking about hundreds of pounds of bait, not putting out an apple on the back porch. I would just buy dry beans and stuff like that. I hear a lot of the hunters' camps would get beans, would get ate. So I would buy big bags of beans and take them into the forest and dump them on the ground. And the wild pigs would start getting it sometimes. But I've actually had some luck in drawing them in. The beans actually will grow. If nothing picks them up, they'll grow, and the deer eat the shoots. So it's kind of harmless. But that's what I found, some of the tracks that I found doing that early. But here's what happened. There was people running drugs in the Everglades, and they were smuggling cocaine in the river right near where I was putting these sets out. And what happened was, it was a big media blitz around the world. What happened with hundreds of people, they have these tour buses that come out here, and they bring people from all over the world. Well, this thing is running around on the side of the road right where the tour buses stop to look at alligators on this deserted road. And so people were there were hundreds of witnesses over about a month's time period. I was on Inside Edition about it. Wow. So these cocaine smugglers, they were smuggling drugs. I knew them. I know everybody. I mean, I know the bad guys. I know the good guys. I'm not saying I hang out with them, but when you grow up in the Everglades and you're all over the place, you know everybody. And so they were smuggling drugs, and they said they got caught. They finally, actually, one of them works for us. After they did their time, they got caught. But one of them said that he was going to shoot that skunk ape that everybody was seeing. And they had money. I mean, they had the money. They got caught with $500 million worth of cocaine. I mean, they weren't dropping little bags out of planes. They were bringing over a boatload. Yeah, so they're going to kill it. Can you imagine somebody with that kind of money sets out to shoot skunk apes in the Everglades and I mean, is serious about it? So I just thought, well, hell, I put the whole life in jeopardy. Now I'm going to have these people, all this drug money, sending these people in here trying to shoot a skunk ape. So it never ends good. It never ends good. Baiting never ends well. I just
understood
one way or another. I just had bad luck.
No good deed goes unpunished, for sure.
That's for sure. And once again, in my field guide, I make that note. If your attempts at baiting are successful, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
100%, man. 100%.
Not for a while, because flood the area, they run it off. You get some nutcake in there wanting to shoot it. I've had people pull up to my gift shop and say, "Hey, you want to see something?" I say, "Well, yeah, sure." And I go out in the parking lot and they open their trunk and it's full of machine guns and crap, and they're Bigfoot hunters. I mean, they're not hunting like I hunt; they're hunting to kill.
Mm-hmm. No, I know that.
I'm sorry. I just have to interject here. What kind of mentality? I'm sorry. I just can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Weird.
Me neither. Like,
America.
We'll see you later. Have a nice day.
Yeah, no. Peace, love, and happiness, not kill everything and let God sort them out. Come on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a 50-year-old. I'm a tree hugger, kind of, sort of, so, I blow mosquitoes off my arms when they are biting me, so, I just try. That's the only thing. I'm not very good at it, but I try, right? We should all just try, right?
Jeremy, you're an angel. We all know that.
No, please. We're all like that, but, I mean, come on, you guys. I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Is that where we come to, where we have to, everything has to be we have to shoot it, kill it, something, first-person shooter? I'm sorry, I mean, that's when Granny said back in the 80s that video games are going to be the end of us. Oh, no. She was right. We play too many video games, and now we're all a first-person shooter wannabe. I'll put my microphone down. Sorry.
Yeah.
David, do you think that these creatures pose any threat? Do you think that these are dangerous to us? Do you think that they're out to, if provoked or even if not provoked, that they're a dangerous species?
Yeah, locals say if you hurt one of them, you'll never make it out of the woods alive. I don't know if that's true or not. I never hurt one of them, but there's a lot of people have come up missing in the Everglades over the years. A lot, and they never find them. So I don't know. People get out in the woods and have a heart attack, and the buzzards get on them, and they're gone in a day. So I don't know if anybody's ever been injured by one. The biggest story I ever heard was some hunters are out at their cabin, and they've got a tree over the top, and they're cooking dinner, and they're playing cards, and a skunk ape was up in the tree over their cabin, and it fell out of the tree and came through the roof into the cabin with them, and just raised all hell in the cabin, and actually broke out part of the side of the building and escaped. But they didn't get a shot at it, but I don't think it was really attacking them. Oh, and then there was some European women a few years back down the road. This is crazy. Huh? They're taking pictures of bromeliads in the trees. They're driving a convertible, and they're easing up this road off of the main highway. There's some side roads you can take to do photography, and they're photographing bromeliads. And all of a sudden, they hear grunting coming out of the bushes. They turn around. This is what they told the service. They turn around. There's this man covered with hair, looked like a Bigfoot, had an erection, and was coming towards their car. They got in the car. They took off. They went and they made a report down at the ranger station, and then they came down and they told me about it. And that was a huge, huge story. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever heard that, but that story was a story that never ended. It went on and on, mainly overseas.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing with Bigfoot having an erection, coming after people and pissing all over the place as they're coming and coming closer. I mean, that's not uncommon. There's lots of stories you hear about that. Oh, yeah.
Heard of it?
Oh, absolutely.
Really? I never heard of it.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
Wow.
Yeah. But you were just talking about making grunts and they were hearing something. Did these things ever make any vocalizations like we get with like the Bigfoot up here, like the howls, and do they do tree knocks? Is there a form of communication or any noises that you ever hear?
I never hear. We have a variety of large woodpeckers here. In early morning, you hear so many knocks, knock, 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 and I'm talking about loud that carries for miles. You hear these knocks and knocks. So I don't know about the knocking. I've never really contributed any knocking to it, but there are noises that I hear in areas where I found tracks that are unusual, mainly low moaning noises, just moaning noises that can't be explained. But I get a lot of audio sent to me from people who spend a great deal of time in the forest, and they send me these audios that they've collected, and I've heard some really wild sounds. I mean, so I haven't really put my finger on anything directly. For me, it's more or less if I'm in an area and I'm hearing a sound coming out of the woods and I don't know what it is, that's unusual because I've lived here all my life. I know all the sounds.
Sure. What's your take on infrasound? Have you heard that one where these creatures make a low type of resonance and it kind of puts people in a state of paralysis or gives them an eerie feeling?
Well, that could be what I'm hearing because that's kind of what I hear. It's like a cooing. It's like a growling cooing, and it's so deep and so low that just carries and carries and carries. It's it's real quiet down here in the swamp, and you can hear something, literally for a mile away if you're listening, and so that's what I hear.
Have you ever had any like sort of bad feeling that you just couldn't figure out what's happening? Like all of a sudden you're out in the Everglades and you just get a really weird, eerie feeling telling you that maybe it's time to go home?
That's funny because after I get done talking with y'all, I got to do this paranormal thing, and then I'll be out in the Everglades till night, till probably 3 a.m. on foot. I was out last night. I got in a wrestling match with a python 2 nights ago and pulled some muscles. So I've been kind of down. I'm not really getting. I do tremendous walks into the forest. I do unheard of walks individually, 8 hours in, 8 hours out. I do this nightly. It's not something unusual.
What kind of snake protecting? If you're walking through the glades, like, are you in some kind of like a leather suit walking in? I mean, what's going on here? Gators?
Well, I started my day this morning by feeding the second largest snake in captivity in the world 5 full-grown chickens. And now I'm sore from wrestling with that python the other night. And then I went out and had to collect alligator eggs out of my nest. So I had to get my female alligator, put a rope on her neck. I didn't rope the male, just to hold her while I got into the nest and got the eggs out. So I'm around the biggest snakes in the world. I have the largest collection of the biggest snakes. So all the time. So I worry about the poisonous snakes. But we have pythons here now. That's that's one of the series that I work at. Guardians of the Everglades is a python hunting series that runs on Discovery. Right now it's running on Animal Planet. But I'm pretty much there in all of the scenes, but you won't see me. But I'm there with them. I'm the Everglades expert. So I'm always accompanying all of the film crews.
Oh, man.
Hey, Jake, do you think it's time to send our friend David here down the rapids?
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, well, this show is called Mountain Stream, and around this part of the show, we have a little segment. It's called The Rapids, where we ask you rapid-fire questions, just a series of 10 questions, and see how you do.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I am. I just want to give him a little. There's no right or wrong answer. We're trying to we're just trying to get to know you a little better. So we're going to take a couple deep breaths, and we're just going to have a little fun with it. What do you say?
And
I'm ready. Let's go.
These questions are different for every guest too, so these are tailored for you.
Okay.
Jake. What we're going to do is I'm going to ask David if he's ready. I'm going to ask you if he's ready, and then I'm going to say, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. So, David, are you ready?
Yes.
Jake, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Speed buggy or speed racer?
Speed buggy.
Broccoli or cauliflower?
Broccoli.
Virtual reality or in real life?
In real life.
Can you smell what the rock is cooking?
I think so.
T-shirts or tank tops?
T-shirts.
Don't you love visor hats?
I do.
John Anderson or John Paycheck?
Johnny Paycheck, please.
Does function trump fashion?
Talking about Trump?
Does function trump fashion?
Yes.
Better bad guy, Ming the Merciless or Skeletor?
Skeletor.
Creedence Clearwater Revival or Leonard Skinner?
You're killing me.
I know.
Yeah.
CCR or Skinner?
Oh, God. Skinner, because he's from Florida.
All right, then. I know Curtis Lowe. It got you. I think it was Curtis Lowe that pulled you over, right?
It did.
You were between Have You Ever Smelled the Rain and Curtis Lowe, and what is your favorite song? So I think Mr. Shealy, he couldn't have done better, Adam. What do you think?
Jake, I'm kind of blown away here.
Wow.
Awesome. Job well done, Mr. Shealy. I'm just going to put the phone down and give a little hand clap.
Wow.
You survived the rapids.
I was a little nervous, but I'm so glad.
Survived the rapids without a paddle. Very well done. Very well done.
So I mean, because we don't know, we're kind of, I don't know, we're all just, what are we, Adam?
We're just fans through the hourglass.
Right, just like, geez Louise, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so we're kind of backing into this question, but what do you think about the, there's got to be some kind of code. There's got to be some kind of, why do certain people, is it just a random thing that certain people have sightings, or is it, because there's a lot of talk about people who have generational sightings and people who have seen these things for over long periods of time. So have you heard anything about that, Dave?
No, I don't know. The reason that I have so many sightings is because I spend so much time in the forest, I believe.
Right.
And
yeah,
I'm living in an area where there seems to be a number of these animals. But generational sightings, that wouldn't be unusual because, you know what they say, like father, like son. So, I mean,
right.
You do the same thing that somebody else did, chances are you're going to experience the same stuff. So, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. I just credit putting in a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree 100% that the people who do also that would be one thing, Adam, that everyone involved in who has the sighting, they've all put in the time, whether they don't necessarily have to be Sasquatch hunting, but they've put their time in the woods. They put their time in, obviously we all put our time in the same area.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of the sightings and the research we do come from hunters and loggers, because they spend more time in the woods than the guys that are behind the desk up here in the North Country. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just how it is. Yep. It's like the lottery. If you don't play it, you're not going to win it.
You got to be in it to win it.
To win it, yeah. And I have a gift shop up at the highway, and a pretty young lady behind the counter who sells, T-shirts and hats for me. And I have the animal exhibit that people can enter. I have the giant snakes and alligators, and so I've got a little business going on. I've got a campground that camps 150 people on the property here, 150 campers. And
you're talking about Skunk Ape headquarters there?
Yeah, and I have lodging, I have cabins, and I have Indian huts that overlook the grasslands they're called glamping. They're screened in with king-size beds and linens and the mosquito netting.
Oh, really?
Comfy, cushy. And then I have 5 guides who are licensed by the National Park Service who do tours daily, and that's all advertised as Everglades Adventure Tours, but it's all my business. But I cater to people from around the world on a regular basis here at my research headquarters, and I do a lot of filming, television commercials, stuff of the Everglades, stuff like that. I do here. You have to make a living. I mean, I can't live off the plants. I can survive off the Everglades, but I like having the comfort of home too.
Have you ever traveled to New York State? Have you ever been up here to the Great North Country?
No, I've been tempted to go to the area where y'all are from. I've heard about it all my life. People really taunt that area. People from New York love that area y'all talk about. No, I've been up to Maryland. That's about as far as I've been up the coast. I've never made it over to New York yet. My son was just there before COVID. He went there right when it started, and he had a wonderful time. Yeah, it's a big city.
Oh, is that?
Y'all are to the north.
NYC? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, if this COVID, if and when this blows over, you're always welcome to come stay here with us in the Adirondack Park. We'll put you up and treat you like family, my friend.
100%. And, you can do some cross-country skiing, or you can do some snowboarding or skiing or, and whatever squatting, depending on what time of year you come.
Yeah, I can see you taking a picture of me coming down the slopes on my skis. It'd be like something out of Scooby-Doo, a big snowball with skis sticking out of it.
Dude, that's me. I was going backwards the first time with the skis on, I went backwards into the woods like, I can't do this,
Wow. I'll tell you, after John Denver hit the tree, I said, hey, that might not be something I want to try.
Ooh.
David, how would people get a hold of you? Do you have a website?
I do. I got a website. It's skunkape.info. That's my business website.
Oh, really?
Skunkape.info. And
very cool.
And that just links into everything, the lodging and the canoes and the skunk ape and the animals.
Well, you got me intrigued. It sounds like something me and Jake should come down and check out.
Okay, well, before I forget, I have to do the same for you and invite you down here. I've got lodging. You can have a place to stay here in the Everglades, and I'll be happy to show you around. All you got to do is just get a hold of me and let me know, and I will book your stay on me.
No way.
All
You're the man.
That's awesome.
You're a good brother. It's been really fun talking to you. I know you got other things to do. You got a paranormal show coming up tonight.
Dude, I can't wait to reciprocate. I can't wait to, geez Louise, it's going to be fun, dude. It's going to be fun.
Good connection. Good connection here.
Totally.
Well, Jake, is there anything else you want to say or ask David?
Jeez Louise. Yeah, there were a whole bunch of questions I had, but they were on a different piece of paper. You know, it's okay. I think we're good for a first base. I appreciate thanks Dave for coming on and hanging out with a couple of North Country guys.
Yeah, I had a good time. Thank you for asking me. It's my pleasure.
Really good that it worked out. I'm really glad, really happy the way it worked out. It was super fun. We really appreciate your time. And we'll be in touch with you. I'm sure we'll talk again.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, and God bless Tim, huh? Don't we miss him really?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a shame. I'm glad you said that again. Such a shame.
Hey, and hey, let's all put a welder hat on tonight before we go to bed, because he loved those welder hats.
That's right.
For sure. Just like Fat Dog. Our brother, our good friend here, Fat Dog here in the North Country, he likes to sport the same kind of hats that Tim used to, rest in peace. So, man, those are right around here. If you see one of those hats, you're over the target here in the North Country. So, peace out.
Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Now this thing you're doing tonight with a paranormal thing, do you know where we might be able to find that or locate that?
No, I didn't get much information from her.
Okay. I'll be in touch with you.
I'd love to. All right.
Well, if you do, give us a shout and we'll try to promote it tonight. So.
Okay. If I find out from her, we'll see how it goes. I'll see if she gets a hold of me early. All right.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well,
awesome.
David, you have a great night. Jake, love you, brother. I'll talk to you soon. And we are out.
Peace.
Jake, I tell you what, that was a good show.
Dude, that's why we have people from out of the area sometimes come on our show, give us some different insight, and that will help us, give us some more tools in our toolkit to help us squatch up here, I think.
Yeah. And information is important to gather. I was blown away by what the guy said. And, I think we got a new friend, too.
Totally. I can't wait till he gets up here.
Oh, yeah. And we might go down there. Maybe
now you're talking.
Maybe once this COVID gets up. Can you imagine the BLB squatching down there with him, going on one of those airboats cruising around?
I couldn't imagine seeing one of those Skunk Ape trying to get a cast track with one of those little side digilator toes they have down there. That's got to be pretty wicked to see. I can't imagine seeing that in real life. I'm excited.
So am I. Jake, let's get excited about the next guest we have coming on. We can't tell you who it is right now, guys, but we'll be sending out a promo. Guys. Next Mountain Stream, number 13. Look for it. Check us out. Guys, we love you. Jake, I love you the most. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you guys later. All right. Peace.